Hello YouTube family, James Green, short series Shenanigans. So on today's episode, we're going to be doing a little something different today. You know, on my channel I always try to mix it up a little bit. So I have a tool post grinder, and it's a Dumore. It's a small, has a small 1/3 horsepower motor. It's over behind the lathe over there. Recently had a chance to make an acquisition of a motor, and it had a bracket and everything with it, and spindle. It needed a lot of TLC. I knew that, but I wanted it because it had a bigger motor. So we picked this up from a Facebook friend and also a viewer named Jack Hoying. If you guys ever deal with him on any of the social media stuff, he's a great seller, so shout out to you, Jack. So anyway, what we've got here, and I just figured I'd be a good subject for today. This is an old school Dumore tool post grinder motor. Now this is a half horsepower. I believe the other one I have over there is a small third or a sixth or whatever it is. I'd have to look. It's definitely smaller than this. So I plugged it and checked it. It does run, but as you can see, this is very, I'll zoom in here so you guys can see. And I was fully aware of what I was getting into. This has the original cloth cord on it. Okay, I plugged it in, started it up, it ran, and then I unplugged it real quick because you can see the cord is it's gone. Now, I would like to reuse this switch in the new cord, and it's got a lot of, this is how they used to ground stuff back in the day. You used to have the 2-prong, and that plugged into a ground on something. So how technology has changed. So we're actually going to put a new cord on this, and I've done this on these before. Matter of fact, I do the same thing on that other Dumore tool post grinder when I got it. So I'm just going to walk through it today. I've already taken this left-handed nut off, and I've got a tray up here, a magnetic tray. These are so handy to hold on to stuff, and I put it up there because that's all the stuff for this project is going to go in that tray up there out of the way. So I'm just going to have you guys kind of sit back and watch what we got going on. So what we're going to use for a cord is, I have an old extension cord. It's been patched a few times. I've decided I'm actually going to use this. Okay, we're going to sacrifice this. I've got newer ones, but this is definitely a good candidate for creating a replacement cord. So we're going to actually use this. It's heavy enough wire, definitely a lot better, and it's actually got a ground plug. So first we'll see how long this one is, just so we kind of have an idea, so we can chop off a hunk. We'll just do it real quick, just do a quick measure. So the first piece is, say we need a piece approximately 12 inches long for this first piece here. And then from here, we'll just do it a real quick measurement. Doing it real simple like. We're at 4 and 5.5. So we're 5.5, 6.5 feet in total. So we'll make a 12-inch piece, and then we'll cut like a, I don't know. We'll see. We'll cut us a long piece. Pretty much the sky's the limit. That way we don't have to worry about having a lot of other floating around, and we'll use up as much of that extension cord as possible. So let me get my coffee out of the way, and remember, size matters in everything you do. Straight up coffee, milk and sugar here in 2017. Nice and cold outside. Alright, so we've got that off. First thing I'm going to do, let's go ahead and rotate this. Take a quick look, because I know I'm going to have to slide this open, and I'm going to fully inspect it. Let me get my tray down here handy. So I'm going to go ahead and slide the brush caps out real quick. Okay. Just because we know, let's get a bigger flat head, or wider I should say. There we go. One's old school Stanley vintage, actually True Test Stanley. Oh, Anyway, old school, been used for a chisel and a million other things. I've had this one for a long time. Let's slide the brushes out first. Whoa! Spring's in good shape. And so is the brush cap. You got to be careful on some of this stuff. This older, I'm presuming this is pre-World War II or thereabouts. You know, dropping things like that, Bakelite, they can fracture real easy. So brush is actually looking really good shape. We'll rotate the other side here. And we're going to give this thing a good once over while we got it apart. Open it up. So yeah, we're just going to give this thing a good once over. It's starting ran. And we'll actually polish these in here a little bit with some steel wool so we make sure we get good contact. We'll freshen up all the contact points on this while we're at it, because it came from up in the Rust Belt in the Ohio area, so we know anything that, you know, comes down here to the southwest, it tends to dry out. So, and we can hear the bearings now. And depending on what we find when we get in here, we may end up ordering bearings for this, which this isn't going to be just a one and done electrical deal. I fully expect it to have to go through, and it's like, well, you got it apart, just go through it, you know, go through the whole thing, get it all fresh, get it good to go. We're going to open it up and clamp it here. We're not going to clamp real hard, just so it doesn't fall. Alright. Flatheads on the top. And they're in pretty good. Let me grab a drill here with a flathead. Throw it down in low. I love this Makita. This thing will get with it. Alright, down in low gear. 4 lights. Alright. And if we have to order bearings from this, or for this, I'll definitely do another, you know, this will be more than one episode. Let's go ahead and slide the back cover off. Okay. Just a little, nice thing about these old ones, you don't have to worry about, you know, if, you know, obviously if you crank down really hard you can bend the case, but we don't want to do that. Let's get our now I'm pulling up on this. There we go. Alright. We got it loose. Alright. Got the back cap loose. Now, I'm just going to set that right there. Now it's got a screw here we can pull out so you can actually change the felt, because when this thing runs it actually sounds like a vacuum. And it pulls a lot of air through here to cool that motor. That just pops off for the felt. And I may even, yeah, I'm going to put some new felt in there, that's for sure. Why? Because it's a part and we're doing it. Might as well do it 100% or don't do it at all. I'll go ahead and pop this off here. It's really smart how they did this. The air intakes for the motor, so you're not pulling a bunch of garbage in, which, you know, if you're grinding, you're creating a lot of grinding dust. They just don't build stuff like this anymore. And there's your two. I mean, them things are big. They're big enough I could put my thumb in there. That's how big those holes are. I mean, look at those intake holes. Definitely this just right there. Okay, so the whole thing has to come out, shaft and all. There we go. Ta-da! Oh, I can feel that. Yeah, I can feel a bearing on that. So that's another reason you do the video, so you know how this comes apart, so you can look at it and see. I'm going to slide this off here. You can see it's actually pretty clean inside, which is good. That's a good sign. That means the filter has been doing its job. So that feels and sounds good on the back. A little noise. But up here, let me turn the heater off because it's running in the background here. So it's dead quiet unless something goes on. So listen. That bearing needs to be replaced. And it's got a part number on it. So based on that alone, I am going to replace that. Because this thing turns at such high RPM, and as far as I can tell, that's the original bearing. It says USA and it has a part number on it. It says WC88016. So I will definitely look into getting that, but just, and you can feel it too. You can hear. That is something that the armature is in good shape. So we're definitely going to get a new bearing for that. We'll order it before we go to try to take that one off. So this will not be finished today, which is fine, but I figured, hey, good opportunity to show you guys what the inside of one of these looks like. And so you've got your windings and everything inside here. I'll try to show on camera how they used to wire things up back in the day. Pretty interesting how they did it too. And so this is going to be some unique wiring setup. You can see in there with the springs and how they attached to, and the wires and everything. Pretty interesting. That dust seal up front was working pretty good. You can see a snap ring in there that you take out from the inside to be able to pop all of that sealed mechanism out, the dust cover and everything. And I'm definitely going to look into making sure everything I can do in here to make this 100% good to go. Clean it up, and you got to be real careful. You don't want to drop these old motors around because that varnish can come off so easily. I've seen that happen so many times on things where guys will throw old motors around, or rotary phase converter motors, because they're so heavy. They go through a lot of temperature changes, and that varnish can break off so very easily. So we're going to go ahead and pop these two flatheads loose here. So we'll get the windings out here. Our magnetic tray. We're definitely going to have to order bearings for this. So those are out. And you can actually just reach in there and those just pop, those little springs. It's pretty neat how they're set up. Reach in there and they just literally pop. You roll them right off with your finger. Now, what's going to be fun is this grommet. I know this grommet's probably going to break, and I'm going to get a new grommet and put in there. So sliding windings out can be tricky. And you don't want to bend or pry if you can avoid it. I went ahead and loosen it just because if I need to move things around. Now we need to reach in and get that ground loose down there on the bottom. And it's kind of hard to show this on camera. That's why I'm trying to tell you guys everything that I'm doing. So I'm loosening it just enough. I don't know if they have a grommet on there or just a wire. And they have, yeah, that's all coming apart. Okay, we're going to go and take that all the way out. Here we go. I love these pliers. You can get these. O'Reilly's has these for doing wire working. You got your cutters, strippers, a couple different crimpers for your insulation and your other stuff, or reaching in here just like this and grabbing little things out. That stuff is so dry and crusty. Slide it up. I'm just going to cut that one piece. Yeah, as soon as you get into these motors, as soon as you move wiring, yeah, the insulation just falls right off. So if you guys get one of these old ones, you're definitely going to count on having to rewire it. So that way you don't end up destroying it. Get some other cutters in here for the inside. The ones that I need are hiding. Alright, so we'll cut this and slide that out. There we go. So they actually had a pretty good setup on the ground, the type of style of eyelets they did back in the day. Okay, it's actually pretty dang good. So yeah, you can see these just rolled, literally rolled right off. You reach in there and flip the little springs and they pop right off. I'll shine the light in there. You can see one on one side, one on the other. And they just roll right off. And so we're going to have to do a lot of soldering and unsoldering, and this is how they did it back then. So there's no real, that I'm aware of, because everything is just dry rotted. So literally, we're just going to cut. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut it right here, because I'm going to do that. And this, we're just going to come in here and get some larger cutters, and we're just going to slice that off flush. If I can find, oh, they're over here. The big wire cutters. The cable cutters. Let's see if we can take these here and just slice, because I'm going to get a new grommet and everything. And at the same time, if we can pull everything out, there's just no real pretty way to do it. It's just, you don't want to destroy the motor, but you know that's all dry rotted, and I don't want to destroy it to the point where yeah, see, it's, you're just gonna have, I'm gonna have to get some grommets, and that's one of those deals. It's just, there's no real good simple way. It's just go in there and cut and pull and remove. Once you get one side cut off though, like if we pull all the grommet from this side, we should be able to tap it through. And that's what I've done in the past. Too bad this case doesn't separate right here. That would make it handy. I don't know, it might. Or is it just one solid piece? Let's see. Now, sometimes, you know, grease hides, so this is just one solid piece here. And now, you gotta reach in here. So it's attached to, see how that varnish and the stuff from the wire has to come out, the windings. And that's where you got to be careful of when you go to take stuff out. You don't want to mess up the varnish. Don't know if it's glued in there. Sometimes you can tap on the case. It's years of gunk have glued it, or the varnish has, you know, glued itself to the inside. So I'm going to very gingerly, and probably won't do it all on camera, but I'm going to carefully, and there'll be another episode when I go to do some other on this. That'll be on another episode. So there we go. It's a Dumore catalog number 5-021. It's 115 volt, 5.6 amp, and it's a half horsepower. And there's no pulleys or anything with this, so I'm going to make pulleys and everything. So this is going to be a long-term project, along with all the other stuff. that I've got on my plate. So, just so everyone knows, I haven't forgotten about the power drawbar project. I am waiting. My welder that normally sets right there should be back this next week. So, it had to have some warranty work done, and so that's kind of why we're waiting to finish up the drawbar project. Let's go ahead and pop this switch open, take a real quick look, and so you guys can see what the old school, I mean, the switch worked great, and I like that. It sounds like it's sticky a little bit. Let's see if we can pull this apart and salvage it, matter of fact. Got some rather small screws in here. I've taken some of these inexpensive Harbor Freight screwdrivers and I've narrowed them up for stuff like this. These magnetic trays, I'm telling you what, they are handy, handy, handy to have. Oh, for stuff just like this, because you can put all your metal parts in it. So as soon as you open it up here, you can see we've got the screws out. Very carefully, you know, how they make the connection between the two wires and how they wire that in. And you can see the insides, how it's slid apart. So it actually slides in underneath. If I get it back in the slot correctly. Back, that's a very and you see how it comes apart. So if you ever have to put one of these together, don't pull straight out, you got to pull out and slide it down a little bit. I've messed with switches like this before, back when they used to, you know, built things to last to where you could rebuild a switch. You could take it apart and replace parts. Now everything is just, you know, throw it away and get another one. Very, very dry. A different mindset back then, how things were built. So you could rebuild it and do it over and over and over. And then they got to the point that, you know, hey, we're building things and they're lasting forever. So they started building in. A friend of mine, Dan Leduc, and I were having this conversation a couple weeks back about planned obsolescence. And I can see where, you know, if you build things to last and they never break, then you can't sell parts. I'm convinced a lot of that has been purposely built in so they can sell parts. You know, God forbid you build something that lasts 50 years before you have to do anything to it. So this is a very, I like how they did this. Okay, so very solid brass. Nothing can really break in there unless you physically break the Bakelite, which if you drop it, you can really do that. So what I liked how they did here, and this is pretty indicative of the time period how they did things. So they take the wires rather than grommets, and this is a good little trick to do if you don't have a grommet or you don't have room to put one or you don't want to put one. So you actually tin the wires, you get them in the shape you want and you tin them and then you fasten them down. I don't know if the camera's not focusing on that, but those are actually, and I use the word tinned in, mean they're covered with lead and wrapped around. So you've got your ground, your other, your common, your neutral, whatever you want to call it, wherever you're at. Your ABC, your 1, 2, 3. And so, because of how they used to do things back in the olden days, you know, here's your ground that you would plug in. I'm presuming that's the ground. So we're actually going to use that. So I'm going to do that same trick on the new cord because that's just neat how it's done. We'll do that, and that'll be, you know, I'll go ahead and show that in another video whenever I start putting this back together. You know, I always like to switch stuff up on my channel. I figured this would be a good opportunity, you know, first big video of the year for the channel. And again, we'd like to thank All Industrial Tool Supply. So 2017, we got a lot of plans. And again, you guys, the viewers, I look back now, the channel's been going a little over 3 years. And again, I just want to say thank you. I know my channel's not as big as a lot of other guys and gals out there, but you know what? I started the channel for several reasons. One of, because it's something that I wanted to do to not only document things for myself so I could look back, just like doing this motor. I can play the video back and go, okay, how did that come apart? How did it go back together? And I'm like, hey, you know what? If I do that, other people out there, and matter of fact, just the other day I had a gentleman, there's a video I did way back on my mini mill, how do I rebuild, or how I went about rebuilding the head and why and everything and the gears, and you guys remember that. And so that's mainly why I did it. I didn't do it to try to see if I can get 1 million viewers, although that would be nice. But you know, I always try to do things from a garage guy, garage warrior, weekend warrior. You know, this is how I do it. Maybe it'll help. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys have made this great. You know, the community, the friends I've made, the acquaintances, the live Facebook feeds. I look back now and I see where I have learned a lot, and I really hope that by me doing what I'm doing has helped. And I know I've had people, but sometimes it seems like you feel like you're in a sand pit that you just can't get out of. And you know, but I know it's appreciated out there, and I will continue to do it to the best of my ability. And again, thank you to the channel sponsors, you know, Big Gator Tools, All Industrial Tool Supply, Empire Abrasives, and American Rotary. You guys, they're phenomenal companies, as well as Drill Hog. You know, I found them, they're great products, and I don't talk about companies unless I am a firm believer in their products, period. Bottom line. I'm not one of those channels that if something's garbage, I'm not going to talk about it. Plain and simple. Other people want to run their channel that way, that's fine. But again, thank you to all the subscribers, new ones, my faithful watchers. I appreciate it. 2017, I've got a lot of projects lined up to do, and you know, looking forward to this summer's events coming up. I know Stan Zikoski, he hasn't given us a date yet for the summer bash, but I know it's going to be coming up. So if you all want to come out to Southern California, you know, we'll, you know, start. We're anxiously awaiting when that's going to be taking place. So I'm sure if you watch his channel, he will mention it and the date and all the details. So we're still waiting. Anyway. So we'll call this episode number 1 of the Dumore tool post grinder motor rebuild, if you will. I know on the shaft on this thing, it needs bearings in it as well too. So I'm going to look through, and we're going to get bearings for it, because they're noisy, and depending on the size pulleys on the end, you can get, if you read the information on the cover, they can get way up. We're talking 40,000 RPM or whatever, if I remember right. I had it. Oh, here it is. So yeah, if you look at this, 42,500 idling spindle. That's the spindle speed. So we got to make sure we get some good bearings, because that spindle can go very, very fast depending on how you set up the pulleys and belts. So with that, thank you for watching this week. I know I'm going to order some bearings, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but it will definitely be a series 2 and 3. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, my public email address, eagledustoff37@gmail.com. If you have any questions, at eagledustoff37 on Instagram and Twitter. Positive comments are encouraged. Click the like button, share the word about my channel. Take care of yourself and take care of your family, because remember, at the end of the day, you and your family is all you got. Until next time, get out in the garage, maybe find you an old Dumore tool post grinder and rebuild it. Have fun. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.